The phone buzzed, vibrating silently against the polished oak of his bedside table. It wasn't his usual phone, the sleek black rectangle he always left charging on the kitchen counter. This one was older, a model I hadn't seen him use in years, tucked almost deliberately beneath a stack of magazines that had been there for months, gathering dust. I'd just picked up his discarded gym shorts, planning to toss them in the laundry, when my elbow brushed the pile. The magazine slid, and there it was. Dark, unassuming, glowing faintly with a single unread notification. My heart gave a strange little lurch. I didn't know my marriage was over until I found the phone he forgot to hide. I stared at it, frozen. The screen lit up again, a brief flash. It was unfamiliar, definitely not his work phone, definitely not the one I ever saw him scroll through during dinner. Why was it hidden? Why was it on silent? Why did my hand feel so heavy as I reached for it? My thumb hovered over the screen. It was locked, of course. But then, almost instinctively, I brought it closer to my face. His Face ID. The familiar green light flickered, and with a soft click, the phone sprang to life. Before I could even register what I was seeing, the screen automatically opened to a messaging app. Not the standard one. Something I didn't recognize. And then, the name at the top of the chat window. A name that stole the breath from my lungs, leaving a hollow ache in its place. Chloe. My best friend. My sister, by choice. My Chloe. I never thought I'd tell this story. Not out loud, not to strangers. Some wounds are meant to fester in the dark, hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed normalcy. But the truth is, I can't keep it to myself anymore. It's a weight, a suffocating blanket that presses down on my chest every time I try to breathe. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear it. Someone needs to know they're not alone in the wreckage of a life they once thought was perfect. At 27, I thought I had everything. A loving husband, a beautiful home, a career that fulfilled me, and a best friend who was, quite literally, my rock. Mark wasn't just my husband, he was my anchor. He was steady, reliable, almost boring in his devotion, and that's exactly what I loved about him. After a string of tumultuous relationships in my early 20s, Mark was a quiet harbor. He was safe. His love felt like a warm blanket on a cold night. We met in college, dated for 4 years, married for 3. Our life was a series of comfortable routines, shared laughter over terrible cooking shows, and quiet evenings curled up with books. He always made me feel seen, cherished, protected. He planned our future with meticulous care, talking about kids, a bigger house, travel. Everything felt solid. Immutable. And then there was Chloe. My best friend since freshman year of high school. We went through everything together, bad haircuts, first heartbreaks, college applications, our respective wedding dress shopping. She was the one who helped me pick out Mark's engagement ring, the one who calmed my pre-wedding jitters, the one who stood by my side as my maid of honor, her smile as wide and genuine as my own. She was more than a friend, she was family. We had double dates with her long-term boyfriend, Leo, every other Friday night. We had late-night phone calls dissecting everything from work drama to the latest Netflix binge. We shared secrets that no one else knew, dreams that no one else understood. She knew the deepest parts of me, the parts one rarely showed anyone else. She was the sister I never had. There were no obvious red flags. None that I recognized, anyway. That's what makes the betrayal so insidious, so devastating. It wasn't a sudden explosion, it was a slow, deliberate erosion, meticulously orchestrated beneath the surface of what I believed was perfect. Looking back, the cracks started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Like hairline fractures appearing on an ancient vase, they were easy to dismiss, easy to rationalize away. Mark started to become a little more distant. It wasn't a drastic change, just a subtle shift. Sometimes, I'd reach for his hand across the sofa, and he'd already be pulling away to check his phone, claiming an urgent work email. He'd become fiercely protective of his phone, too. Not that I ever wanted to snoop, but sometimes I'd see him quickly flip it face down if I walked into the room, or take calls in the other room with the door closed. He'd say it was client confidentiality, a tricky new project. I'd nod, trusting. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Emotionally, he'd be unavailable at times. I'd try to talk about my day, about a stressful situation at work, and he'd nod along, eyes glazed over, offering platitudes that felt empty. Sounds tough, babe. You'll figure it out. It wasn't the engaged, thoughtful Mark I knew. I blamed it on his demanding job, the long hours. We were both busy. It was normal for things to ebb and flow, right? Then there was Chloe. My ever-present, always supportive best friend. But even her behavior began to shift, albeit in ways I barely noticed at the time. She started asking strange questions about my marriage. Not overtly, never directly, but cloaked in concern. Are you and Mark still as close as you used to be? He seems a bit preoccupied. Or, does Mark ever make you feel like you're not heard? I'm just asking because sometimes Leo does that to me, and I wonder if it's a guy thing. She seemed almost too involved in my marriage, offering unsolicited advice about communicating with Mark, about keeping the spark alive, about managing his stress. I remember one time, specifically. It was a few months before I found the phone. Mark and I had a petty argument about dirty dishes, nothing major, but it escalated into something bigger, a rare emotional outburst from both of us. I called Chloe in tears, venting for an hour about how Mark was being insensitive, how I felt unheard. She listened patiently, offering comfort and validating my feelings. Oh, honey, that's awful. He shouldn't make you feel that way. You need to tell him how much that hurts you. Make him understand. She even suggested I pull back a little, make him realize what he was missing. I thought she was being a good friend, offering solid advice. I thought she was on my side. I dismissed everything. I blamed stress, the pressures of work, the general grind of life. I told myself every couple went through periods of adjustment. Every friendship had its phases. My life was good. We were good. The thought that either of them could betray me, let alone together, was simply unfathomable. It was a narrative too dark, too devastating for my mind to even process. But the phone. The hidden phone. It shattered that narrative into a million irreparable pieces. My fingers, now trembling, began to scroll through the messages. The app was called Whisper, or something equally innocuous and insidious. It was a ghost app, designed to look like a calendar or a calculator on his home screen, but clicking a specific sequence would open the hidden conversations. Chloe. The name swam before my eyes, blurring into an indictment. The messages weren't recent. Oh, no. That was the first gut punch. My thumb scrolled past weeks, then months, then what felt like an eternity. The earliest message on the thread was dated nearly 2 years ago. 2 years. My breath hitched. That was just a year after we got married. The progression of the messages was a slow, agonizing crawl through hell. At first, they were innocuous, almost work-related, because Chloe and Mark sometimes collaborated on events for our respective companies. Then they became more familiar, more personal. Shared jokes, emojis that only meant something to them. Inside jokes. Jokes I didn't understand. Jokes they had that excluded me. My stomach curdled. Hey, busy bee, how was your day? Long boss is being a total ass. LOL, same here. Think we deserve a drink after this week? Then, the intimacy began to seep in, like poison dripping slowly into a clear glass of water. You're the only one who really gets it, you know? You always make me feel better. You're my escape. Wish I could just run away with you sometimes. My vision blurred. Run away with you. Not us. Not we. Just you. The casual flattery turned into something more overtly romantic. Pet names. Sweetheart. My love. My chest constricted, a band of steel tightening around my ribs. This wasn't just flirting. This was a sustained, deliberate emotional affair, unfolding right under my nose, disguised as friendship and professional camaraderie. Then came the physical implications. Not explicit photos, not at first. But suggestive remarks, references to that night, our secret spot, counting down until I can touch you again. My fingers shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. The room started to spin. My perfect life, my safe harbor, was a lie. My husband, my best friend, had been building a secret world for 2 years, and I had been living in the ruins of their deception, blissfully unaware. Then I saw it. A message from Mark, dated the morning of my 29th birthday. Happy birthday to my amazing girl. Can't wait to celebrate tonight. Love you. And then, an hour later, to Chloe, God, I miss you. This dinner is going to be hell. Wish I was with you instead. And Chloe's reply, me too, babe. Thinking of you. Don't worry, we'll make up for it tomorrow. Hugs and kisses, I remember that birthday vividly. Mark had been distant, distracted. He'd apologized later, blaming work stress. Chloe had been overly solicitous, clinking her glass against mine, proclaiming me the best friend a girl could ask for. My best friend. The one who was already sleeping with my husband. The timeline twisted the knife deeper, each message a fresh wound. They were texting during our vacations, during our anniversaries, during the countless times I'd confided in Chloe about my insecurities, about Mark's growing distance, about my fears for our future. She wasn't just part of my life, she was inside my marriage, dismantling it from the inside out, piece by agonizing piece. The worst part wasn't just that they were having an affair. It was the realization that my best friend, my confidant, had been listening to my deepest vulnerabilities, offering me advice, while simultaneously betraying me with the man I loved. She was advising me on how to fix my marriage, how to understand Mark, all while her hands were deep in the mud, helping to destroy it. She'd console me about Mark's late nights, knowing full well he was spending them with her. She'd ask if Mark was being supportive, as if she didn't know every intimate detail of our struggles because she was part of the struggle. He said you were upset about my birthday dinner. Did I really mess up that bad? I'd asked her once, genuinely confused by Mark's withdrawn demeanor. Chloe had patted my arm, her eyes wide with feigned sympathy. Oh, honey, he just knows you deserve the world. He feels bad if he can't give it to you. He's just stressed. Give him space. Space for them to operate their sick, twisted love affair. And Mark. My steady, reliable Mark. He played both roles with masterful precision. The loving, devoted husband to me, the passionate, understanding lover to her. He complained about me to her, painting me as difficult, unreasonable, emotionally demanding. She's so needy sometimes, Chloe. I just need a break. Another argument about the future. Sometimes I wonder if she even hears me. He used my flaws, my anxieties, my honest conversations with him, as fodder for his illicit relationship, bonding with Chloe over my supposed shortcomings. The hypocrisy, the sheer audacity of their deception, hit me like a physical blow. My breath came in ragged gasps. I slid down the wall in the hallway, the phone clutched in my trembling hand, the cold porcelain of the tiles a stark contrast to the inferno raging inside me. Nausea clawed at my throat. My body shook uncontrollably, a tremor that started deep in my bones and rattled through every nerve ending. I didn't confront them immediately. How could I? The shock was too profound, too visceral. My mind raced, replaying every interaction, every casual touch, every shared glance, every innocent word. All those moments, once filled with warmth and trust, now felt poisoned, twisted, fake. Every I love you from Mark, every you're my bestie from Chloe, echoed with hollow mockery. My entire life, my carefully constructed reality, collapsed around me. I wasn't just betrayed. I was managed. I was a character in a play they had written, a puppet whose strings they controlled. My emotions, my reactions, my very perception of my marriage and friendship had been manipulated, steered, and orchestrated by them for their own perverse pleasure. The agony wasn't just the affair itself, it was the chilling realization of how thoroughly I had been fooled, how expertly they had lied to my face, for 2 long, agonizing years. I spent the rest of the day in a blur, moving through the motions of normal life while a silent scream echoed in my head. I made dinner. I folded laundry. I even managed a hollow "How was your day?" when Mark walked through the door. He answered with his usual calm demeanor, oblivious to the nuclear meltdown happening just inches away from him. He couldn't have known that his world, and mine, was about to shatter. I retreated into myself, spending hours locked in the bathroom, not crying, not raging, but thinking. The anger was a slow burn, replacing the initial shock. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of an immediate, emotional breakdown. No, this required strategy. This required precision. They had planned their deception for 2 years, I would plan their downfall with equal meticulousness. I started to gather evidence. The phone became my most prized, and most terrifying, possession. I copied every single message, scrolling through their sickeningly intimate exchanges, screenshotting them, backing them up to a secure cloud drive, and emailing them to a new, anonymous account. I needed proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof. I found their secret spot mentioned in the messages, a secluded park bench they used for midday rendezvous, a specific coffee shop they frequented. I started taking mental notes, remembering their work schedules, their late nights, their girls' nights. I even started secretly recording some of Mark's conversations, using a voice recorder app on my own phone, just to capture his increasingly evasive answers when I asked about his day. The paranoia was suffocating, but necessary. One afternoon, a message from Chloe to Mark caught my eye. Did she ask about the trip to the lake house this weekend? Just make sure she thinks you're on a solo fishing trip like you said. My blood ran cold. The lake house. Our lake house, the one my grandparents had built, the one filled with my most cherished childhood memories. He had been taking her there. Not just to some anonymous hotel room, but to our sanctuary. The violation was complete. The rage was a firestorm, burning through my veins. It was no longer just about infidelity, it was about the utter desecration of everything I held sacred. They hadn't just broken my trust, they had defiled my past, present, and future. I needed to decide how to confront them. An explosive, tearful confrontation? No, that would give them too much power, too much room to gaslight, to twist the narrative, to blame me. I wanted them to feel the precise, surgical cut of their own deception. I wanted them to realize the sheer depth of my knowledge, to see the trap closing around them. The confrontation came a week later, on a Tuesday. I chose Tuesday because it was our usual double-date night with Chloe and Leo. Leo was a sweet, unassuming guy, completely oblivious, just like I had been. I needed him there. Not as an accomplice, but as a witness. And as collateral damage, if necessary. The thought was chilling, but my heart had hardened. I set the scene meticulously. I cooked their favorite meal, a lasagna that Chloe always raved about. I lit candles. I put on soft jazz. The illusion of normalcy had to be perfect, because the impending explosion would be all the more devastating. They arrived, Chloe's arm linked through Leo's, her smile bright and carefree. Mark gave me a kiss on the cheek, a brief, absent gesture that now felt like a betrayal in itself. "Smells delicious, honey," he said, pulling out a chair for Chloe. My stomach churned, but I forced a smile. Dinner was a nightmare of forced pleasantries and silent screaming. Chloe recounted a funny story about her day at work, occasionally glancing at Mark, and I saw a flicker of shared amusement pass between them, a secret language I now understood. My grip on my wine glass tightened. "So, Mark," I said, my voice carefully light, "did you remember to call the lake house caretaker this week? I think the old dock needs some repairs before we go up there this summer." Mark froze, a forkful of lasagna halfway to his mouth. "Oh. No, I haven't gotten around to it yet." Been so busy. He glanced at Chloe, a micro-expression of panic crossing his face. Chloe quickly chimed in, too quickly. Oh, you know how Mark is with his projects. Always so much on his plate. Don't worry, I can help you find someone, Sarah. She smiled, her eyes overly bright. That's sweet, Chloe, I said, meeting her gaze, holding it. But I think Mark knows exactly who to call. He usually has it handled. My voice dropped almost imperceptibly. Especially after his solo fishing trips up there, right, Mark? The words hung in the air, a sudden, dissonant note in the carefully orchestrated harmony of our dinner party. Mark's face went white. He put his fork down, a soft clatter against the ceramic plate. Chloe's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then dawning horror. Leo, sensing the shift, looked from me to Mark, then to Chloe, his brow furrowed. What are you talking about, Sarah? Mark asked, his voice strained, a forced nonchalance that didn't quite cover the tremor. I picked up my wine glass, took a slow, deliberate sip. Oh, nothing. Just remembering how much you love the lake. And how peaceful it is up there. Especially when you're all alone. I paused, letting the implication sink in. Or so I thought. Chloe cleared her throat. Sarah, are you okay? You seem a little off. I placed my glass down, a little too hard. I'm perfectly fine, Chloe. In fact, I've never been clearer. My eyes, hard and unwavering, fixed on hers. Tell me, Chloe. Do you remember the time you told me to give Mark space because he was stressed about my birthday dinner? The dinner where he told me he loved me, then immediately texted you saying it was hell and he wished he was with you instead? Chloe's jaw dropped. Mark bolted upright, knocking his chair back. Sarah, what the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about this. I pulled out Mark's hidden phone, placing it gently on the table between the lasagna and the wine bottle. The screen, still displaying their chat with Chloe's name at the top, glowed ominously. This little secret, Mark. This little gem you forgot to hide. And Chloe, my best friend, I'm talking about you being a part of it. The silence in the room was deafening, suffocating. Leo, bless his oblivious heart, looked completely lost. What is that? What's going on? Chloe's face was a mask of pure terror, draining of all color. Sarah, I don't know what you're talking about. Her voice was a thin, reedy whisper. Don't you? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Because I have 2 years of messages here, Chloe. 2 years of pet names, inside jokes, I miss you texts, and plans to meet at our secret spot. 2 years of you telling me how to save my marriage while actively destroying it from the inside. Mark finally found his voice, laced with frantic anger. You went through my phone? How dare you? That's an invasion of privacy. Invasion of privacy? I laughed, a harsh, brittle sound that was barely recognizable as my own. You invaded my entire life, Mark. You and my best friend, concocting a perverse little fantasy while I cooked your meals and listened to your lies and confided in the very woman who was screwing you. My voice rose, finally cracking, the dam of my carefully controlled composure beginning to break. Tell me, Chloe, when you asked me if Mark ever made me feel unheard, was that before or after you told him I was so needy? Chloe started to cry, weak, pathetic sobs. Sarah, please, it's not what you think. Oh, I think it's exactly what I think, I countered, leaning forward, my gaze unwavering. I think you're a conniving snake, and I think he's a spineless coward. And I think you both used me, manipulated me, and made a mockery of every single thing I held dear. Leo, finally understanding, slowly turned his gaze to Chloe, his face a mixture of shock and dawning heartbreak. Chloe? Is this true? Chloe couldn't speak, only shook her head frantically through her tears, unable to meet his eyes. Mark, seeing his perfect illusion crumbling, erupted. It wasn't like that, Sarah. It was a mistake. It ended months ago. His voice was loud, desperate. Did it, Mark? I asked, pushing the phone closer to him. Because the last message I have here is from yesterday morning. Can't wait for dinner tonight, my love. Think of me. Sounded pretty ongoing to me. His face drained of all color again. The truth was out. The raw, ugly truth. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't over. It wasn't just emotional. It was a full-blown, 2-year-long affair, physical and emotional, meticulously hidden and expertly managed. They looked at me, utterly defeated. Chloe, sobbing silently, clutching Leo's arm, which he immediately pulled away. Mark, eyes wide with a combination of fear and hatred. Why? I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears. Why her, Mark? Why my best friend? And Chloe, why him? Why me? Mark finally broke. She understood me, Sarah. You were always so demanding. So focused on the future. Chloe, she just let me be. And Chloe, between sobs, whimpered, he said you didn't appreciate him. He said you didn't listen. He said you were always so busy with your career. The audacity. The sheer nerve. They blamed me. My demands, my career, my supposed lack of appreciation. They justified their vile betrayal by painting me as the villain. My heart, already shattered, felt another crack. But then, something shifted inside me. The tears I felt welling up, the scream I wanted to unleash, the raw, guttural pain, it all coalesced into a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't crying. I wasn't pleading. I was standing. And I was breathing. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't the one losing anything. I stood up from the table, pushing my chair back with a decisive scrape. Get out, I said, my voice quiet, firm, dangerously calm. Mark stared at me, disbelief warring with anger. Get out? Sarah, this is my house. No, I corrected him, my eyes burning. This is my house. The one my parents helped me buy before we were married, the one I put most of my savings into. You signed the prenup, remember? The one you called unnecessary because we'd be together forever? I watched his face fall, the color draining again as he remembered the document he'd casually dismissed. You have 24 hours to pack a bag and get out. Anything you leave behind, I'll have shipped to your mother's house. And don't bother contacting me. My lawyer will be in touch. Then I turned to Chloe, who was still sobbing, and Leo, who looked like he'd been hit by a truck. And you too? Get out now. I want you both out of my sight. And Chloe, don't ever speak to me again. You are dead to me. Leo, bewildered and heartbroken, stood up, pulling Chloe by the arm. She resisted, trying to stammer out an apology, but I cut her off. Don't. Just go. They stumbled out, a pathetic, broken pair. Mark just stood there, speechless, probably for the first time in his life. He stared at the phone on the table, then at me, as if seeing me for the first time. The girl he had managed, the wife he had taken for granted, was gone. In her place was a woman forged in fire, stripped bare of illusions, and terrifyingly clear-eyed. I gave you everything, he finally managed to choke out. You took everything, I corrected him, and tried to convince me it was my fault. You stole my trust, my joy, my sanity. But you didn't steal my strength. And now, you have nothing. I walked past him, opened the front door, and pointed. Out. Now. He stumbled out of the house, a defeated, pathetic figure, carrying the full weight of his colossal miscalculation. The door slammed shut behind him, a definitive end to the nightmare. The silence that followed was immense, hollow, but no longer suffocating. It was empty, yes, but it was my empty. The air in the house, once thick with their lies, felt cleaner, lighter. The aftermath was a blur of loneliness, anger, and the agonizing process of rebuilding. The silence in the house, once filled with Mark's comfortable presence, now echoed with my own thoughts. The memories, once cherished, were now tainted, Every corner of our home held a ghost of his deceit, a shadow of Chloe's false friendship. Mutual friends quickly chose sides. Some, the ones who had seen Mark's subtle controlling behaviors, or Chloe's unnerving clinginess, rallied around me with fierce loyalty. Others, blinded by their carefully constructed personas, tried to mediate, to tell me I was overreacting, to suggest forgiveness. I cut them off without hesitation. There was no room for those who couldn't see the depth of the betrayal, or who enabled the betrayers. I deleted Chloe's number, blocked her on every social media platform, scrubbed her from my life as thoroughly as I would scrape a stain from my soul. Mark was a more complicated matter, legally. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Brenda, quickly went to work. The prenup, which Mark had dismissed as a formality, became my shield. The evidence from the hidden phone, meticulously backed up and time-stamped, became my sword. Brenda was appalled by the level of calculated deception. "He wasn't just cheating, Sarah," she'd said, shaking her head. "He was actively undermining your mental and emotional well-being to sustain his affair. And Chloe, her role as your confidant while she was involved with him is just grotesque." The divorce was messy, as expected. Mark tried to fight it, of course, clinging to the illusion of his perfect life, claiming I was unstable and paranoid. But Brenda presented the evidence, layer by layer, dismantling his carefully crafted lies. The financial aspects, his attempts to squirrel away money, his plans to leave me with less, were all exposed. He was forced to concede, to sign, to walk away with far less than he'd anticipated. The financial stake wasn't just about money, it was about power, about his attempt to leave me vulnerable and dependent, just like he had in our marriage. His plans failed spectacularly. The emotional toll, however, was immense. I started therapy. Weekly sessions became my lifeline, a safe space to unpack the trauma, the anger, the profound sense of loss. I grieved not just for the marriage, but for the friendship, for the person I thought Mark was, for the person I thought Chloe was. I grieved for the years I had unknowingly lived in a gilded cage. My therapist, Dr. Evelyn, helped me understand the insidious nature of their betrayal. "You weren't just lied to, Sarah," she explained gently. "You were gaslighted, manipulated, and deliberately made to question your own perceptions. Your best friend acted as a secondary abuser, reinforcing his narrative, making you believe you were the problem. The revelations were painful, but necessary. I learned about coercive control, about emotional infidelity, about narcissistic behaviors. I started to see the red flags I had so blindly ignored before. Mark's need for control disguised as planning, Chloe's over-involvement disguised as caring, their subtle digs at my independence disguised as concern. They didn't just lose me, they lost the only person who truly loved them, blindly, unconditionally. Slowly, agonizingly, I started to rebuild. I redecorated the house, purging every item that reminded me of their deceit. I changed the locks, metaphorically and literally. I reconnected with old friends I had inadvertently drifted from, friends who listened without judgment and offered genuine support. I focused on my career, pouring my energy into projects that made me feel capable and valued. I learned that trust isn't blindness, it's earned, and when it's broken, it leaves a permanent scar. I learned that loyalty should be mutual, a two-way street, not a weapon to be wielded by the deceitful. I learned that my intuition, the little whispers of doubt I had dismissed, was my most powerful protector. One afternoon, 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting on my porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. I hadn't cried in weeks. The anger had dulled to a quiet hum of resentment, but even that was fading, replaced by a growing sense of peace. I was alone, but not lonely. I was independent, and it felt exhilarating. I thought about Mark, probably still blaming me, probably still searching for someone else to understand him, someone else to manage. I thought about Chloe, probably trying to piece together her own life, having lost both me and Leo, a price I knew she never expected to pay. Their punishment wasn't just losing me, it was being left with each other, or with themselves, stripped of their carefully constructed facades. The phone he tried to hide didn't destroy me. It set me free. It shattered my illusions, yes, but from those ruins, I built something stronger, something real, something that was truly mine. It was a brutal awakening, but it was also the catalyst for my own liberation. I am not the same person I was before. The naive, trusting girl who believed in perfect lives and unwavering loyalty is gone. In her place is a woman who knows the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect relationships. But she is also a woman who knows her own strength, her own resilience, her own worth. About a month after that quiet afternoon on my porch, something unexpected happened. I received a text message from an unknown number. My first instinct was to delete it immediately, assuming it was spam or some scam. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. "Sarah, this is Leo. I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone associated with that mess, but I need to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee? Please. It's important. Leo." Poor, blindsided Leo. The collateral damage I had felt guilty about, even though none of it was my fault. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to leave that entire chapter closed, to never revisit the pain. But another part of me felt a strange kinship with him. We were both victims of the same cruel deception, both left to pick up the pieces of lives we thought were solid. I texted back. "Okay. Tomorrow afternoon. The coffee shop on 5th Street. 2 o'clock. The next day, I arrived early, choosing a corner table away from the main flow of traffic. Leo walked in a few minutes later, looking thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. He spotted me and offered a tentative, sad smile. He looked as broken as I had felt. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, sitting down across from me. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "But I figured we both went through something similar. Maybe we could help each other." He nodded, ordering a black coffee when the server came by. "I've been a mess, Sarah. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I keep replaying everything, wondering how I missed the signs. Wondering if I was just blind or stupid or both." "You weren't stupid," I said gently. "They were good at hiding it. Really good. I lived with Mark, and I didn't see it for 2 years." "That's what I wanted to talk to you about," Leo said, leaning forward. "After that night at your house, Chloe and I went back to her place. She tried to explain, tried to justify it. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. I felt my stomach tighten." "What did she say?" "She said it started because she was jealous of you." He paused, his jaw clenching. "Not jealous of you and Mark as a couple. Jealous of you. Your career, your confidence, your life. She said she felt like she was always in your shadow, always playing second fiddle. And Mark, he fed into that. He told her she was special, that you didn't appreciate what you had, that you were too focused on yourself to see what he needed." The words hit me like a slap. She was jealous of me? We were best friends. I never. "I know," Leo interrupted. "I know you didn't. But that's how she saw it. And Mark used that. He manipulated her insecurities just like he manipulated yours. He played you both, Sarah. He made you feel like you weren't enough for him, and he made her feel like she was finally better than you at something." I sat back, processing this new information. It was sickening, but it also made a twisted kind of sense. Mark was a master manipulator. He knew exactly what buttons to push, exactly what vulnerabilities to exploit. He didn't just want an affair, he wanted control. Control over me, control over Chloe, control over the entire narrative. "There's more," Leo continued, his voice dropping. "After that night, I started digging. I wanted to know how deep this went, how long they'd been lying to us. I found receipts, credit card statements, emails. They'd been on trips together, Sarah. Trips they disguised as work conferences or girls' weekends or my fishing trips. They went to the lake house at least a dozen times. They even..." He paused, his voice breaking. They even went to the resort where Chloe and I got engaged. The same resort. Like it meant nothing. Rage flared in my chest again, hot and fierce. The desecration of sacred places, sacred memories. It was their signature move, apparently. Taking what was meaningful and trampling it with their betrayal. "I'm sorry, Leo," I said quietly. "I'm so sorry you're going through this too." "I'm sorry for both of us," he replied. "But here's the thing. I also found out that Mark has been doing this for years. Not just with Chloe. There were others." My heart stopped. "What?" "I hired a private investigator," Leo admitted. "I know it sounds crazy, but I needed to know the full truth. The investigator found evidence of at least 2 other affairs before Chloe. One during your engagement, one in the first year of your marriage. Short-term things, nothing that lasted. But Chloe, she was different. She lasted because she was close to you. Because she had access to your life, your vulnerabilities. She was the perfect weapon for him." I felt like I was going to be sick. The room spun. Mark hadn't just betrayed me with Chloe. He'd been cheating on me from the very beginning. Our entire marriage was a lie. Every moment, every promise, every plan for the future was built on a foundation of deceit. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Because I think you deserve to know the whole truth," Leo said. "And because I want to make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else." The investigator found out that Mark has already started seeing someone new. A woman from his gym. Young, naive, just like you were when you met him. Just like Chloe was when she got involved with him. He has a type, Sarah. And he has a pattern. My hands clenched into fists. The thought of Mark doing this to another unsuspecting woman, another person who would believe his lies and fall into his trap, was unbearable. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I want to expose him," Leo said, his eyes hard. "Completely. I want to make sure everyone knows what he is. What they both are. I want to warn that new woman before she gets in too deep. And I want to make sure that if there are any legal consequences for what he did, for the financial fraud, for the manipulation, he faces them." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave Mark and Chloe in my rearview mirror and never look back. But another part of me, the part that was still angry, still hurting, still reeling from the depth of the betrayal, wanted justice. Not just for me, but for Leo, and for that new woman who had no idea what she was walking into. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, Leo and I worked together, pooling our evidence, coordinating with his private investigator, and building a case. We discovered that Mark had been siphoning money from joint accounts not just with me, but with previous partners. He had a pattern of financial abuse, isolating his partners financially, making them dependent on him, and then using that dependence as a tool of control. It was textbook coercive behavior, and it was sickening. We also reached out to the new woman, a 24-year-old named Jessica. At first, she didn't believe us. She thought we were jealous exes trying to sabotage Mark's happiness. But when we showed her the evidence, the messages, the financial records, the pattern of behavior, her face went pale. She thanked us, tears streaming down her face, and said she'd been feeling uneasy about some of Mark's behaviors but had dismissed her instincts. We'd saved her from making the same mistake we had. If you've ever felt this kind of betrayal, this shock of realization, please share your story in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. It helps us all feel less alone. Your voice matters, and your story could help someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. The final confrontation came when Leo and I, armed with all our evidence, filed a formal complaint with the district attorney's office. The financial fraud was significant enough to warrant investigation. Mark's pattern of behavior, his manipulation, his deliberate deception for financial gain, constituted a crime. It wasn't just about infidelity anymore, it was about systematic abuse and fraud. Mark was arrested 3 months later. The look on his face when the police showed up at his office was, according to Leo's investigator who happened to be nearby, priceless. Shock, disbelief, and then rage. He tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that we were vindictive exes out for revenge. But the evidence spoke for itself. Chloe, meanwhile, had retreated into obscurity. She'd lost her job after word of the affair spread through their professional network. She'd lost Leo. She'd lost me. She'd lost her reputation. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to another state, trying to start over. I felt no sympathy. She'd made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. The trial was long and exhausting. Mark's defense attorney tried to paint me and Leo as bitter, scorned lovers who were exaggerating and fabricating evidence. But the financial records didn't lie. The messages didn't lie. The testimonies from Jessica and from investigators didn't lie. Mark was convicted of financial fraud and sentenced to 2 years in prison, with a hefty fine and restitution payments to his victims. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to see his face again. I'd already gotten what I needed: validation, justice, and closure. The knowledge that he would face real consequences for his actions was enough. Leo and I stayed in touch after the trial. Not as romantic partners, neither of us was ready for that, and we'd been through too much together to risk complicating our friendship. But as allies, as survivors, as people who understood each other's pain in a way no one else could. We became each other's support system, checking in regularly, celebrating small victories in our respective healing journeys. 1 year after I found that hidden phone, I was sitting in a new apartment. I'd sold the house, unable to live in a space so tainted by memories of betrayal. My new place was smaller, cozier, filled with things I'd chosen for myself, not to please anyone else. It was mine, truly mine, in a way nothing had been before. I'd also made significant progress in therapy. Dr. Evelyn helped me work through the trauma, the trust issues, the lingering anger. I learned to set boundaries, to listen to my intuition, to prioritize my own well-being. I learned that I didn't need to be in a relationship to be whole, that my worth wasn't determined by someone else's perception of me. I'd even started dating again, cautiously. Nothing serious, just casual coffee dates and dinners with people I met through friends or online. I was learning what I wanted, what I deserved, what red flags to watch for. I was learning to trust again, slowly, carefully, but genuinely. One evening, I received a letter in the mail. The return address was unfamiliar, but the handwriting made my stomach drop. It was from Chloe. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity, that same dangerous curiosity that had made me look at Mark's hidden phone, got the better of me. I opened it. The letter was long, rambling, filled with apologies and justifications and attempts at explanation. She claimed she'd been manipulated by Mark, that she'd never meant to hurt me, that she regretted everything. She said she was in therapy now, working on herself, trying to understand why she'd done what she'd done. She said she missed me, missed our friendship, and wondered if someday, maybe, I could forgive her. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and threw it in the trash. There was nothing she could say that would undo the damage. No apology that would erase the betrayal. No explanation that would make it acceptable. She'd made her choices, just like Mark had. And I'd made mine. I chose to move forward. I chose to heal. I chose to build a life that was authentic, fulfilling, and entirely my own. I chose to surround myself with people who valued me, respected me, and would never use my vulnerabilities against me. I chose myself. The journey wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, nights when the loneliness felt overwhelming. But there were also moments of joy, of freedom, of genuine connection. I traveled to places I'd always wanted to see. I took up hobbies I'd abandoned during my marriage. I reconnected with family members I drifted from. I built a life that was messy, imperfect, but wholly mine. 2 years after finding that phone, I was offered a promotion at work. A significant one, with more responsibility, more pay, and more opportunities for growth. The old me, the me who'd been with Mark, would have hesitated, worried about how it would affect my relationship, whether my partner would feel threatened or unsupported. The new me didn't hesitate. I accepted immediately. At the celebration dinner my colleagues threw for me, I gave a short speech. I thanked them for their support, for believing in me, for seeing my potential. And then I said something that surprised even me. A few years ago, I went through something that almost destroyed me. A betrayal that shattered everything I thought I knew about love, friendship, and trust. But it also taught me something invaluable. It taught me that my worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. It taught me that I am enough, exactly as I am. And it taught me that sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you can also be the catalyst for becoming the person you were always meant to be. My colleagues applauded, some of them wiping away tears. They didn't know the full story, I'd kept the details private, but they understood the sentiment. We'd all faced challenges, betrayals, moments that tested our strength. And we'd all survived. That night, as I drove home, I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago. The one who'd found that hidden phone and felt her world collapse. I thought about how far I'd come, how much I'd grown, how much stronger I was now. That woman would barely recognize me now. And that was exactly how it should be. I am not the same person I was before. The naive, trusting girl who believed in perfect lives and unwavering loyalty is gone. In her place is a woman who knows the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect relationships. But she is also a woman who knows her own strength, her own resilience, her own worth. The phone Mark tried to hide didn't destroy me. It set me free. It shattered my illusions, yes, but from those ruins, I built something stronger, something real, something that was truly mine. It was a brutal awakening, but it was also the catalyst for my own liberation. 3 years later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Mark had been released from prison. He'd served his time, paid his fines, and was supposedly working on himself. I felt nothing. No anger, no bitterness, no curiosity about his life. He was a chapter I'd closed, a lesson I'd learned, a person who no longer had any power over me. Chloe, I heard, was still living out of state, still trying to rebuild her life. Good for her, I suppose. I hoped she'd found the help she needed, that she'd learned from her mistakes. But her journey was no longer my concern. My journey was my own. And it was beautiful, in its imperfect, hard-won way. I'd built a life I was proud of, filled with people I loved and who loved me in return. I'd found peace, not by forgetting the past, but by integrating it, learning from it, and refusing to let it define me. The greatest revenge, I realized, wasn't exposing Mark or seeing him face consequences, though that had been satisfying. The greatest revenge was living well, thriving, becoming more than he'd ever allowed me to be. It was proving, to myself and to the world, that his assessment of me had been wrong. I wasn't needy, or demanding, or unappreciative. I was strong, capable, and deserving of genuine love and respect. This story, these difficult truths, they needed to be shared. Because silence is what allows betrayal to fester. Isolation is what allows manipulators to thrive. If you've watched this far, if any part of my journey resonated with you, know that you are not alone. There is a way out of the darkness. There is strength within you. And you deserve a life free from deceit, a life built on honesty and genuine love. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Peace Stories for more tales of resilience and truth. Your comments, your stories, they fuel this community. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if this story helped you see something in your own life more clearly. Thank you for listening, for bearing witness to my truth. It's a truth that hurt, but ultimately, it set me free. And that freedom, hard-won and precious, is the greatest gift I've ever given myself. The woman I am now would tell the woman I was then, you are stronger than you know. The betrayal will break you, yes, but it will also forge you into something unbreakable. Trust the process. Trust yourself. And know that on the other side of this pain is a life more authentic, more joyful, and more yours than anything you've known before. The phone he tried to hide was the key to your prison. And now, you are free.